All right, welcome to this week's weekly market prep with Built by Trading. This is going to be going over what could potentially be coming next week, especially with what happened on Friday, which was here's the agenda here. We're going to talk about the jobs report firstly. We're going to go over the Iran and continued geopolitics, some Bitcoin and MSTR, what kind of happened over this last week here and late May, what was reported. SpaceX IPO, that's also coming out. There's a date range between the 8th to the 12th. Mostly what I've been reading is the 12th, so Friday. I believe that the date correct on that. And then potential rotation trade that I'm kind of thinking of. Where is this money that the market is pretty extended in? Chips, tech, etc., memory. Where is that money going to potentially go and flow to as things cool off, if things cool off within those names? And then lastly, we'll go over some actionable names to watch for this next week on the mixed, long, and short side. Okay, firstly, the jobs report, it was printed. It added 172,000 jobs. 85 was expected, so it nearly doubled it. Unemployment stayed at 4.3%, and the NASDAQ dropped around 4.2% in one day. It was like the biggest sharp drop off since, I don't know, 2002 or something like that. So basically, I think the way to think about this is it's a strong beat. So it's going to have potential upward revisions. So it might be hawkish repricing. So basically, it's saying, hey, job reports are strong. The economy is strong. Whether you believe these numbers or not, that's a different conversation. But this is what we have to go off of. So economy strong, job numbers are strong. Then maybe we don't need rate cuts that would be used otherwise to help stimulate the economy. So the market, I think, is trying to price in if the Kevin Warsh, the new Fed head, is going to either cut, raise, or stay higher for longer. And so I think that's what needs to play out over time here. So yield spiked, growth stocks sold off sharply. This is kind of the scenario of where good news, good economy, strong job market growth, etc., is kind of bad news. So the narrative returns for the AI FX names. So putting direct pressure on NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Meta, and all the rate sensitive names, right? So I think that's one way that we can look at the jobs data. That's how I am digesting it. Moving on, Iran, geopolitics, like nothing has changed. The Strait of Hormuz is still not open from what I know of. The ceasefire from April 8th, that's kind of fraying at the edges, right? There's been recent U.S. intercepts of Iranian missiles and drones over the weekend. And so this just continues to drag on, and it continues to be a high headline-driven market, especially in oil, future oil, and then also with the oil equities. So there's not much going on, but as the deadline comes up for that, I think it was a 60-day truce, quote unquote, ceasefire, like we have to be on our toes to expect something to happen, whether a deal happens or whether things escalate. We have to be on our toes. So that makes it a little hard to manage. Now, Bitcoin, MSTR, price action. So Bitcoin, we'll look at the chart shortly. It's testing lower levels near 65, 60K, 66,000 zone. So this is right at MSTR's average acquisition cost. It's really more of a symbolic move. Sailor, MSTR, sold 32 Bitcoin in late May, and it was just recently notified, right? It was recently, what's the word I'm looking for? Recently reported. And so this is the first notable sale in years, and it technically kind of breaks the pure HODL, right? Hold on for dear life narrative. And so the Bitcoin, it's in an obvious bear market. It's underneath the 200 EMA. All the longer term and the shorter term MAs are going down. There's could be lower levels that it might hit. So we watch this. So also institutional flow wise, there's record spot ETF outflows coinciding with this whole risk off sentiment that's kind of in the market. Another interesting thing, again, that's happening this week. I expect it to happen again. What I have is June 12th. SPCX, SpaceX, This is not SPCE, by the way. It's SPCX on a ticker. So make sure you're trading the right name if you're going to trade it. SPCE is actually ripped over the past like week. Last time I looked at it, it was last week. It's pretty funny because there's a mix up here. Either way, they're looking for a valuation of 1.5 to 1.77 trillion. The race size $75 billion, which is a record. It's going to be opening up at $135 per share. So overall, I think this is a pretty massive bullish catalyst for this space and defense theme in general. However, short term, we'll go over the charts quickly later. RKLB, ASTS, LUNR, all Planet Labs, PL, they got crushed on Friday. Number one, they're high flyers, right? So we can't be shocked that they got absolutely crushed with what the NASDAQ and overall market did. However, there's also thoughts that people are raising cash by selling names that are already here, such as these space names, such as Bitcoin, such as the chip and memory names that have been high flyers, raising that cash to put into this IPO, to put into OpenAI IPO, to put into Anthropic's IPO, but specifically SpaceX coming out this week. So we need to be mindful of those thoughts. I think that is more so, but in general, as things cool off, I think this will be a good tailwind for it, especially the defensive sector and just space as well. So potential short-term liquidity rotation to be mindful of. So here's a rotation trade. It's kind of what I'm thinking here. Pressure-wise, obviously rate-sensitive names: XLK, tech sector, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, TXN, INTC, GE, VRT, things like that, right? So all these high flyers that have been absolutely running over the past like 2 months or so, those might start to cool off. So where might the money flow? We can look at XLV Healthcare that has a nice pop now, and then XLF, they typically do better in higher for longer or higher rates in general. So we can look at XLV and XLF, maybe trade the top 2 or 3 names within that if you really want to focus in. I don't touch them. They're not volatile enough for me. Either way, also potentially energy, and then potentially defense names. They kind of caught a bid. So here are actionable names that we're going to go over right now: Amazon, Tesla, Meta, TXN, INTC, GE, VRT. All these names are shorts. Longs, these are potential longs coming into the week. And then these, Google and Hood, they're kind of a mixed bag. And we'll talk about that shortly. But these are the names I'm looking for this week. So again, key focus coming up: SpaceX Roadshow debut. You got to be mindful of the Hormuz Iran headlines. Rate repricing. They're now pricing in about 1 cut, maybe even fewer for 2026. So it's hiking the odds of rising in inflation sticks. And then we got to look for crypto stabilizing. I'm not sure that it's going to. Also, I have SpaceX, or SpaceX. I have an X Space tomorrow, Sunday, June 7th, with my mentor, Babyfish. And so we'll kind of be doing a weekly market prep. So make sure you come and join us there. Okay. We are going to go over the trade names that I'm watching basically for this week. Firstly, basically shorts, right? Microsoft, all of the high fly, all of the heavy tech, they're getting hit. However, I'm looking for something that's actionable either on Monday or Tuesday early in the week that we can take advantage of for a potential 2-3 day selling. These guys are already extended to the downside. I have no business, have no interest in that. Amazon, I am interested in Amazon shorting. Why? Number one, it's below the 8.21. It's below the 50. We have some volume on selling. Obviously on Friday, the odds of this continuing to the downside are pretty high in my opinion. So what we can do is we can look at this 3-day pivot, and Friday's daily pivot, and look for an entry somewhere in here. And I think a good risk area could be maybe above this consolidation area. If you want to be extra safe, you can put it above Friday's high. So anything within this bar, this like 253 to 250 range, I think would be a pretty decent short that you might be able to put on with size. Next, Tesla. Hate to say it, but it is what it is. It was kind of getting tight here, and that triangle broke to the downside, just like everything else on volume right here. So I already have an alert So about 50% of Friday's move, right? Just look for some sort of short covering bounce. Look, this is beautiful, easy, just selling the entire day. Nice trend day on the downside. I have an anchor VWAP. The average price from where it's at right now, the average participant closed around $401, let's call it. So I think anywhere within, again, this 3-day pivot range, 411 to 400, that's an okay area to short in. You got to find somewhere to manage your risk. Ideally, the higher the bounce, the higher it opens, the better. So you can, what I would do, not financial advice, is set a stop loss above Friday's high. And I think that would be a pretty decent area to risk against, because with Friday's move, if the short trade is valid, there is no way price should come up above Friday's high. If it does, then that would make the trade invalid. So I think that would be potentially actionable soon as well. Next is Meta, wherever I have that on here. There it is, right here. This has just been chopping in range. It's at an area of interest here. However, it's getting smoked. So if the rest of the market wants to continue on the downside, this is the first big old red day. I would look for some sort of rest, maybe again within a 50% retracement of Friday, somewhere within this blue box might be pretty decent. If we look at a shorter time frame area, nice little liquidation bar right there at 2 o'clock. Somewhere within this area, maybe even risking the high of this bar of 6,611 and 61 cents. We'll put it 1 cent above. That might be a decent area to look in as well. Next, let's go TXN. Again, daily. A lot of these names are extended. Okay, what I am not doing, I'm not going to short a name that looks like AMD. I'm not shorting this. It's at the 21. Yes, it could easily fall to the 50 with how extended things are, but I'm looking for names that are below the 8, below the 21, below the 50, and have plenty of room. If they're below the 21, they have plenty of room to the 50, or if they're under the 50, they have plenty of room to the 200, or they have plenty of room to the next support resistance flip area, right? So I'm not just blindly shorting all of these names. There is a method behind the madness. So looking within here, again, I think within a 50% bounce, somewhere within that bar, it's got a decent area, decent room to run to the 50 EMA, which is at around 272. So let's say you get in that bar, you got a 7% drop that could probably happen pretty quickly. So looking at TXN, targeting the 50 EMA. Next, INTC. Looking at here, similar idea below the 21. The 50 EMA is a little bit closer. If you want to get something within, again, 50% of that bar or so, that would tighten up your risk and make your R2R a lot better if you want to risk Friday's high. And if you get in there, you can get a nice little 10% move in there potentially as well. These are all, again, quick trades. So I'm not looking to hold these. GE. This is a typo. I'm not looking to short GE. GE should be in the long section. Yeah, I don't know why GE is in my net. That's a mistake. GE is actually long. Looking at this, if you look at the weekly, it's not really doing anything. It's chopping around in a very large range. It's close to a potential area of supply. It's got 3 weeks strong already. However, if we want to potentially get into this, I did try a shot on GE on Friday, actually. I entered here at the anchor VWAP and set a low. It was staying relatively strong to the rest of the market. So I wanted to see if it would continue higher. It failed. I was wrong. No big deal. I'd still be in it if I put my stop loss at the low of the day, but I don't like to hold over the weekend. So it was a day trade. I'll see if I can grab something there. Either way, it's above the 8 EMA. I think somewhere, within this realm here. If it wants to undercut Friday's low and then reclaim it, I think that'd be a pretty solid trade. But looking for a long in GE, again, that shouldn't have been on my short list in the presentation there. VRT, if this breaks, let's say 295, this is a potential short. And it is at a potential area of support. It has a potential undercut the 50 and then bounce. However, if this fails, we can potentially head to 272 and maybe even try and fill this gap, which is close to the 200 EMA at 233. So if that happens, we can get a trade, let's say that bounces and it fails. We might have a 25% down move that we can capture, depending on your risk reward and however you want to trade that. So VRT is a potential short there as well. LNG, low, well, it's above the 200 now. It's above the 8. It's at the 21, so it's creating higher, lower highs and lower lows. So it's downtrending. It's pretty obvious to see, right? It's pretty close to that downtrend line. If you care about that stuff, this every time it's hitting the 21 past here, and now it's there. Now it's being rejected. So I would be mindful. This is a potential short here. You just have to get a pretty tight stop loss. It's below the 50. It's holding the 8 EMA. Maybe this one should be in a little bit of a mixed bag. HAL. Now I'm saying, hey, energy might be a place to be in. However, this does not. Well, that's not even the right one. Come on now. So this is just chopping. It's in range. It's not doing anything. If we get a little bounce to here, we can maybe set our stop loss against Friday's high. Now this is, again, it is very dependent on headline news and what's going on with the war and yada yada, right? We've been over this time and time again. And so if that continues to move and it breaks 38, let's say 75, we could probably get down to 36 or so. If you want to map that out, if you get in somewhere around there, you can get a nice 10% move. That should be enough for a decent R there. HL, metals are getting crushed. They are certainly in play. Look at that, level broken. I'd watch for a bounce for a potential reentry here, but the 50 is down, the 21's down, the 8 is down, the 200, it's below the 200 consolidated. It just broke below this consolidation here. There's a couple of things that could happen. It could do like bounce here and then reject lower, or also it could, where'd my thing go? It can come back in here, get accepted, and then go this way. Or it could just chop around in there. You got to be ready for different scenarios, because you don't know what's going to happen, which is why you manage your risk. If this continues to the downside, I'd be watching this $12 area. And, if you get somewhere in the middle, there's a 16% move, and maybe even a 24% move to the downside. We could be looking for that. AG is another short idea. Basically, it looks very similar to what we just looked at, right? Consolidation, broke out lower, metals getting hit. The only thing is, the risk reward isn't the best here, unless you get a nice pop into Friday's high, which would be up here, and then you could short to this potential support area. Gold, GLD, also failing, breaking these lows. I'm watching this 385 coming in next. AEM, another metals, mines, gold, consolidation, break. I am really like here. You can look at all these little bottoming tails. It already broke that one. This one is 160.60s next. This one's about 156.30. The main one that I'm really looking for is this 150-ish area, 150 to 151. That's what I'm kind of targeting here. These can be hard to trade because these typically are pretty gappy. So you got to maintain your risk. Let's move on to long ideas. Cat, look at Cat, Caterpillar, nice and strong. Flag popped up, downtrend line, looking like a retest setup. If this area of the market wants to stay strong, this is relative weakness. It didn't get absolutely crushed like everything else. If money starts to flow into here, I think we could see it early in the week. 892.53, just below this pivot on gap, might be a decent area to buy. It's close to the 21. It's above the 8 right now. It would be a pullback. At least it could set a higher low relative to this low here. If you really want to, you can put an anchor VWAP at this low. Average person's already underwater there. Not the best look. And then I have the anchor VWAP from this here. So maybe a target of 890. Actually, an undercut of, I don't want to put that there, an undercut of this pivot on gap to fill it and then come on back out might not be a bad trade either. So I would look for Cat for potential longs, although I'm not a super fan of longs right now in this market. CCJ, I say this, yes, it got hit, but look where it's at. It's at the 200 EMA with confluence of this support. So this could be a support play. especially if it undercuts this $100.11 low and then reclaims it. You could maybe take a shot at the low of the day, see if this prior support area holds again. Otherwise, it's just kind of chopping in range here. And so that can be a little challenging. Maybe this needs to fill it out before it actually starts to go. So we already did GE. Next would be RTX. These are starting the defensive names. I am pretty curious about. They've gotten smoked ever since basically the war started, which was the complete opposite of what I thought would happen. But here I am. So they've gotten hit, and now they're starting to show a bid. It's holding the 8 and 21. It's holding the 200 now. It's at the 50. What's being rejected, but this is starting to base. It looks like it could start to move, and I think this has a decent potential to where money could start to flow into. And so really that's kind of my thought process on that. GE already said it. I'm looking for longs in GE. NOC, again, this one doesn't look as good as RTX in my opinion, but the 200 is down, the 50 is down. This one's a little bit stronger. It's at this prior support area. Right now it's retesting it. So whatever happens here is pretty important. If it continues on down, it's a short. If it gets up above, maybe it chops around and continues to turn around. So yeah, I'd be looking at those. Mixed bags. Google. We want to talk about some relative strength. Only down 0.98% on Friday. Like, come on. That's pretty wild. Holding the 50 EMA here. Anchor VWAP from this prior low. It's still, it's underneath the 21, but if it just bases here, not bad, not bad. However, at the same time, it could catch up. If the overall market stays heavy, this could be actually a decent short idea to risk against Thursday's high if it wants to break down. And it has some pretty decent room to run. It has a little bit more to go fill this gap. I could see it run into 330 or so, maybe even, I'd say at least 350. It's going to continue on down to retest these highs. So I would look for that. Hood's also a mixed bag. Yes, it's got the pressure from Bitcoin. However, they are also in the financial realm too. And so they might, with that diversification of kind of being in the financial realm too, they might get some inflows from it, as well as Trump accounts. They have that behind them. That's kind of what this push was here. So I don't know. Overall though, if you zoom out, look at this. It's not doing anything. It continues to fail to do stuff. It's just basing, which is a good thing. This is the second time it's failed at the 200 EMA. So I'd keep it on watch, but this isn't on the top of my list overall. Now let's look at XLK. This is what I'm talking about. Absolutely getting crushed. Let's look at XLF. Basing. If you want a downtrend line, here we go. We got one right there. It's broken out of it. It's getting a little volume in here. And so I would say, XLF, this looks like it's starting to get a bid. Money might start to flow into XLF. So if you want to go look in the financial area, that might be worthwhile for you. Otherwise, healthcare, XLV, look at this. Base broke out. Yes, we got some selling on Friday, but look at the huge gap up, some selling. Look at the move here, 3% on Thursday. These are kind of stand up and take notice. We got some selling, we got some consolidation. It's over the short term, it's over the 200, it's over the 50. XLV, healthcare, they might start to turn around and be the play where money starts to flow into. Now, let's look at, I told you we would go over space and things like that. Let me find those names. Here we go. Rocket Lab getting crushed, right? LUNR getting crushed. It's coming into an area of like an interesting area. There we go. ASTS back in range. Not ideal. Maybe it's probably going to go down to this end range around 75 to 80 bucks, somewhere in there. Planet Labs, absolute crush, down 26% in one day, right? Iridium Communications holding up better, holding the 21 still, but with the heaviness of the overall sector, I wouldn't be shocked if that goes down too. So that's my point. I think the whole space theme, I don't know what it tells you about cycle-wise of, data centers and space and being multiplanetary and blah, blah, blah. Does that tell you cycle-wise where we're at in the market? It seems pretty far-fetched, but with AI, is it? I have no clue. My job is to manage my risk and price entries in my trades. But these are thoughts that we do have to think about. And so overall, I think space will have a bid eventually. I'm just curious on where the money, if this money is coming out currently to go into SpaceX, because there's a lot of talk on SpaceX. Hey, don't buy it this and that. Don't buy it this and that because you're going to be the exit liquidity as a retail trader. Yeah, that historically that's true. It's most likely going to be true here. We just have to manage things. Lastly, let's look at the news upcoming this week. Tuesday, we have existing home sales. Wednesday, core inflation, inflation rates. Then Thursday, we have the PPI. And Friday, we have the Michigan consumer sentiment. So we have a pretty busy week coming up. And then one other thing, let's look at earnings. There is the earnings grid here. I'm kind of looking at this for the first time. Adobe is interesting on Thursday, especially because it's an AI theme. Oracle for sure is pretty interesting. That's on Wednesday after close. And I'm not sure if there's really anything else that is going to work the market here or really give us a lot of juice. Okay, there's the last snapshot for you. So again, thank you for your time. Like, subscribe, share, join us on the X Space tomorrow night, 7 p.m. And go watch my FinX videos for the names that were popular over Financial X this week. None of this is ever financial advice. Always make your own decisions, manage your own risk, do your own due diligence, and work with others. And we'll catch you next week. Later.